Well, Ann Coulter, of course, a great columnist and best-selling author. Her latest book, In Trump We Trust. That's the best Trump book out there. You go to AnnCoulter.com. You can get the book there. You can get her new column there, AnnCoulter.com. Ann Coulter, how you doing?
Fine, thanks. How are you, Mark Simone?
Very good. I'm reading all these fake news stories all day yesterday on Facebook. I see Trump cutting Meals for Wheels. That's the end of Meals for Wheels. It's all over. It turns out in the budget, he's just cutting a little thing that is like 2% of their revenue. I mean, people just make up these stories.
Well, although that's a good attack on the media, it's not a very good defense of Trump. He should cut it.
Well, but he doesn't. They don't fund Meals for Wheels. It's like
2 years ago, the federal government spent something like $100 billion on food programs. I just tweeted this out. This is or a few hours ago, according to the GAO. There are 18 separate programs that are food programs in America. No, all of these programs, whenever you hear the heart-wrenching stories, as I have said many times, I promise you no one will go hungry, no one will go unclothed, poor, dying in the street. What will happen is some useless, duplicative government employees will lose their jobs. Trial lawyers will lose their jobs. Community organizers may lose their jobs. But the more heart-wrenching the story, the more heinous the program is. In fact, I was just tweeting out before coming on your show various other programs that I am disappointed his budget does not take a total axe to.
Well, there's some good things. They cut out NPR. I mean, this NPR.
Again, we've been waiting to do that for 20 years, and no other Republican had the balls to do it.
Yeah, and also, if you're NPR and you were running that thing, you might have said a few years ago, hey, this is so partisan, we better not do that or we're going to lose our government funding. We better stay in the middle. But it's like the most crazed left-wing radio, that NPR.
So much of our tax dollars go to fund people attacking us, including all of the NPR and these arts programs, as if they could not get by on their own. You know, when I worked for the Senate Judiciary Committee, one of the things, not the Judiciary Committee that looked at, but the Senate looked at, was the funding for all of this public TV. And, you know, things like Sesame Street, it's just unbelievable how the government works. Okay, so Sesame Street gets funded with all these federal grants. They come up with Big Bird and popular things. Guess who gets the profits from those trademarks? Would it be the federal government, as it would be done in private practice? You come to work for a university, you work for IBM, you file a patent when you're on their salary. That goes back to IBM. It goes back to the university. No, that's not how the government does it. No, all the Sesame Street creators are billionaires now, and we had to fund their little projects. No, fund your own radio. Apparently, if you're popular enough, I think it'll be on. Plus, which wasn't the whole idea of public radio, at least, that, you know, there were some places out, I don't know, in the middle of Kansas, and a tornado could be coming, and how would they know about it? Have you heard of the internet? I think we don't really need this anymore.
Well, that's a very good point. That was the original purpose of public television, to get into those spots where they didn't have broadcast television. But you're right. Internet is taking care of all of that. And I haven't heard of, do you know if Rush or Sean Hannity apply for government grants to stay on the air?
No, all this government funding, there are so many programs, we are funding the left to attack us. You cannot go poor in America as a liberal. The government has plenty of jobs for you.
Yeah. And listen, I love PBS, and they got some of those wonderful shows, but as you point out, the great shows like Sesame Street make billions in marketing and all. They can pay for themselves. And why the hell would they allow Bill Moyers on the air? There's no more alt-left, far-left partisan than him. If you're getting government money, get him off the air.
Well, that's the other thing. A, we don't need it. B, it's outrageous that they use taxpayer dollars to line their own pockets. And C, if you're being subsidized by the taxpayer, could you stop being so outrageously partisan? I mean, it's one of the most left-wing organs, or many of the most left-wing organs are subsidized by the taxpayer. It's crazy. Oh my gosh, you should cut those entirely. Why is the federal government doing Meals on Wheels? Come on, that isn't even a state function. That's a local town function. And again, the federal government, billions of dollars spent every year just on food programs, $8 18, not a dozen, not 10, 18 separate federal programs are food programs. How many starving people do we have? If you looked around, the problem in America isn't starvation, it's obesity.
Yeah, well, but and once again, they didn't cut Meals for Wheels. The government stuff was like 2% of the budget, so it doesn't amount to much.
Yes, that's a very depressing report, other than the fact that you have demonstrated our 1,000th example of fake news being propagated by the MSM.
Yeah, and listen, if you're NPR, call that George Soros. He funds rioters in the street. I'm sure he'd give you a few bucks, wouldn't he?
No, we have to save George Soros's money so it can be spent on hitting professors.
So,
even the First Amendment.
Hey, you've been following the wiretap. There's no wiretap, but I saw it on the cover of the New York Times on January 20th. Nobody seems to go to the New York Times and say, you claimed you heard the transcripts. Tell us about it.
Right. No, apparently I was skiing last week, as you know, and I was catching up on my hate watching yesterday, watching a lot of cable news. And this is the craziest story I think I've ever seen. Their obsession is over the fact that he said wiretap, and it wasn't technically a wiretap. How many times does the White House have to explain? That was not meant literally a wiretap. He meant surveillance. Wiretap is a word that's used for that, and in fact, in the sentence I just used, a phrase used commonly by the media. The White House said today, it would be as if you and I spent months saying, well, the White House doesn't talk. The White House is a house. It doesn't talk. What do you mean by that? And they keep saying, no. We don't literally mean the White House talks. What that means is the Trump administration. And we keep coming back. Now, are you going to correct? You said the White House said today. It's insane, Mark Simone.
Yes, well, but I read a column today. It was an interesting column about Donald Trump, and it said you have to remember he uses old-fashioned language. Like he doesn't say numbers, he says figures. And he doesn't say surveillance, he says wiretap. That's like a 1960s kind of a phrase.
No, as usual, the entire universe understands Trump, and the media gets hung up on something they think they can get him on, and just keep repeating the question over and over and over again, as if, well, we have no idea what you meant when you said wiretap. What could that possibly mean? Did you mean a rhinoceros?
So, but again, why doesn't that Senate Intelligence Committee? Why didn't they call in the New York Times editors and say you printed on January 20th that you had been given access to the transcripts from the surveillance?
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, as I said on Mornings with Maria today.
Oh, but you're saying this everywhere but here.
I just want to point out, in the middle of the night, I'm in Los Angeles. These congressional Republicans are really useless. I mean, the Democrats are deaf, so we have to keep the House and the Senate in, quote, Republican hands. But man, could Trump use a little help from Capitol Hill. He's got Senator Cotton, and now I'm pleased to see Senator Rand Paul. And other than that, what are these useless legislators doing? They're just utterly, completely moronic and useless. They ought to be impeaching those judges on the travel ban pronto, and that is not an outrageous suggestion. We have basically salon editors sitting on the district courts, put there by Democratic senators, saying that they are more powerful than the executive branch. They are eliminating the presidency. They don't like the president who won, so they're just going to come in and say whatever he does. No, I'm a district court judge. I went to law school a few years ago, and I'm going to overrule the president. No, that's not how the Constitution works. This is not how our republic works. They are trying to overturn our actual constitutional framework, and Trump has got to say, no, I'm sorry. I tried to be nice about this, but this is an insane decision. It would be as if they were trying to overrule the president on going to war. The commander-in-chief makes a declaration of war, and a district court judge says, no, well, this will affect the citizens of Hawaii because some might sign up and they could be killed. So, no, we're overruling the declaration of war. They can't do this. This is madness. There is no precedent for what either of these judges are doing, and it's a dramatic move, but these are dramatic times. I mean, this is shocking what these judges have done, and the fact that we cannot it's almost preposterous to imagine Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell leading an impeachment and removal. No, they'll just have our entire constitutional system fall apart. The only person we can count on to respect the rule of law and the Constitution right now is Donald Trump and, 2 senators.
Paul Ryan, the Republicans' answer to Chuck Schumer. He's the Republican version now. So,
and there are a few members in the House.
Well,
there are about 6 good House members, but literally, I would say it's under a dozen Republicans in the entire Congress who have any idea what they're doing there.
I hate to say we're out of time, but Ann Coulter, you should get her book, In Trump We Trust. Everybody's going to write a Trump book now, but this is the book, In Trump We Trust. And
it is fantastic.
It is. You go to AnnCoulter.com. You can get it there and sign up there. You get her latest columns and, of course, AnnCoulter.com, and follow her on Twitter and Facebook. And Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us.
Good to talk to you, Mark Simone. Bye-bye.
Take care.